بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, in today's talk, we'll continue on where we left off last week, talking about the lives of Sahaba in context of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the way the da'wah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam progressed from the time the first wahi was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we are studying what was the role of the Sahaba during this time. And along with that, of course, we talk about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because when we talk about the life of Sahaba, the main reference point is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was revealed to Rasulullah, and then it was conveyed by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we see the impact of the message of Islam on the lives of the Sahaba, and that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam created the best generation from there on, which is a generation of the Sahaba. Hence, it is important for us to know the lives of the Sahaba, not just merely to know the stories regarding the Sahaba. Rather, yes, these are stories, these are the facts that happen in the lives of Sahaba, and we learn from that so we can apply. And inshallah, our intent is to follow the footsteps of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba ridwanullah alayhi. And so last week we talked about Mus'ab ibn Umair, and specifically from the point of view of he was one of those Sahaba who not only the one who migrated to Habasha or Abyssinia, or today's time we call them Ethiopia and Eritrea. Mus'ab ibn Umair, he migrated twice to Habasha, and also one of those Sahaba who migrated to Medina as well. And he was the first ambassador of Islam sent by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We talked about his life, and of course, the reason was because we were at the time of, we were talking about the time period when the Sahaba, they could not take the kind of a torture that they had to go through. So some of the Sahaba allowed them to migrate to Habasha, and that was after Allah Azza wa Jal gave the permission for migration. And then we talked about, after Mus'ab ibn Umair radiallahu anhu, we talked about a little bit of we digressed away from the subject because of the month of Rabi'ul Awwal. We talked about passing away of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as reported in the riwayat that on the 12th of Rabi'ul Awwal. But we did not want to just talk about from the perspective of just talk about Rabi'ul Awwal. Rather, we talked about that what happened that day when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, and next couple of days that prevented the burial of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though he passed away on Monday daytime, but he was buried Wednesday night. And there's a very significant event happened, and a lot of time we talk about the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we tend to not pay attention to such an important and significant event of the history of Islam, that a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that the one who is referred as Imam al-Anbiya, Ashraf al-Makhluqat, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he passed away, he was not buried right away, while on contrary to that, we see that even his daughter Ruqayya radiallahu anha, when she passed away, she was buried as soon as possible, to the point that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not able to see her before the burial, because he was busy in Badr, and Uthman was left behind in Medina to take care of Ruqayya radiallahu anha. And the day the news of the victory of Badr came to Medina, this is the day when Ruqayya radiallahu anha passed away. And she was buried right away, because this is the ikram of a janazah in Islam, that we bury a deceased person as soon as possible. As we know of our beloved brother Ayub, who passed away last Saturday, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant him Jannatul Firdaus without any accountability. May Allah Azza wa Jal give the patience to his family, and may Allah Azza wa Jal unite us all in Jannatul Firdaus, along with Brother Ayub and Anbiya and Siddiqeen and Shuhada and Salihin. The point of reminding him also, when Brother Ayub passed away, He was buried right away as soon as possible as well. And this is, we are very well aware of. But when we came to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was not. And the reason was the Sahaba were engaged in choosing their Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Khalifa of Rasul, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anh, as the Amir before the burial of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is a principle in the fiqh, that an obligation can only be delayed, janazah, like obligation of janazah can only be delayed if there is something of higher precedence needs to be done prior to that. Hence, Sahaba's ijma' was that burial of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, choosing of Khalifa as Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu had a higher precedence than burial of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is an important aspect that we should remember, and should remember that, look, today we are missing this entity. Because of that, the ummah is going through so much difficult time. Not only the ummah, but the world is going through difficult times. And this is the rahmah of Islam that can be implemented over the people to show them what is Islam really about. And people will not be able to see it until really the real Islam, if you want to see it, it has to be an implementation phase. And this is why Sahaba, there was an ijma'. Ijma', when we say it's the consensus of the Sahaba, that Abu Bakr's nomination and election was of higher precedence than the burial of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the way Sahaba understood. This is the way they acted. Okay. Now, so today, inshallah, we move on as I said. So we talked about the Habasha, and after the migration of the Habasha, the second migration I'm talking about, in the 6th year of the Nabuwah or the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we know that. We talked about that previously, so I will not go into detail of Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, how he came into Islam. But rather, there was another personality who entered into the fold of Islam as well, and that was Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib. He was the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And one day, what happened was Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting at by Mount Safa, and he was sitting, and Abu Jahl saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He started saying bad things to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he started cursing at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and saying things about the deen of Islam. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed silent. He did not reply back to Abu Jahl's stupidities. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not reply to him, now Abu Jahl took a rock and he threw at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's head. And that cracked Rasulullah's head, and the head started bleeding. And now after that, he did that, he left Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he went towards the Kaaba and continued his business and sitting with his friends over there. While all this was happening, one of the slave girl of Abdullah bin Jud'an, she witnessed the whole event of what exactly happened. And Hamza radiallahu anhu, who was not a Muslim at that time, he was coming back from one of his hunting trips, and he had a bow and arrow in his hand at that time. So the slave girl went to Hamza radiallahu anhu, even though he was not a Muslim, but she went because he is the nephew of Rasulullah. Still, as we have discussed that in the past, that the way the tribalism used to work, even at that time, whether you're a Muslim or non-Muslim, they would go and defend their tribal member of their tribe. As one of the sayings that used to exist among the kuffar, they used to say, which actually is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but with a different meaning. It says that unsur akhaka dhalimun wa madluma, that help or support your brother, whether he's an oppressor or oppressed. This used to be a saying, expression among the Arabs, which actually they took that in a literal sense. That you support your brother, whether he's oppressed or oppressed, it doesn't matter. You have to take care of your tribal member. So this was there, and when she went to, and by the way, and the very same thing, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the hadiths said, and Sahaba asked Rasulullah at that time, Ya Rasulullah, we know how to help or defend your madloom or oppressed brother. How do you help your dhalim brother? Rasulullah said, you hold his hand. That's the help to your brother. So in Islam, we don't say the way the kuffar used to do, that no matter whether your brother is the dhalim or madloom, oppressor, you go and help. No, we help him for, yes, in both cases, but the meaning is different. In one case, you are helping him to take him out of the oppression. In the second case, you are holding his hand. This is help because you are preventing him to be punished by Allah Azza wa Jalla. So that's what Islam teaches us. Then, anyways, so she went to Hamza radiallahu anhu, and she mentioned Hamza, what Abu Jahl did to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Hamza heard about that, he went to he still had that bow in his hand, and he hit Abu Jahl on his head with the bow. Now the tribe of Abu Jahl gathered around Bani Makhzum, and they say they're going to fight Hamza radiallahu anhu for the action that he has done. And then he is in the Kaaba, in the Haram. And on the other side, the family of the tribe of Hamza radiallahu anhu, they gathered and they say, Bani Hashim gathered that they are going to protect Hamza now. They're about to start fighting about this issue. Then Abu Jahl came into senses. And he said, let Abu Umara. Abu Umara was the kunya, or the name of, the title of Hamza radiallahu anhu. And he said, let him go. It is Abu Jahl's mistake. He said, he's the one who made the mistake. He's the one who reviled his nephew shamelessly. Hence, what he did is correct. So he is the one, he knew that now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's family, or Hamza's family, is powerful. And not only Hamza hit him, but he also said that what if I am a Muslim also? I declare that I am a Muslim. This is what Hamza did. Hamza was not there in reality to accept Islam at that point. It is out of anger, he said that he is a Muslim too. Now go ahead and fight with me. And Hamza radiallahu anhu, he was a firm, tough guy that nobody would go against Hamza radiallahu anhu. Now, Hamza, of course, he said this out of anger, out of defending his nephew, defending his pride of the tribe and all those things. But later on, he thought about it and he did become a Muslim with his heart as well. So let's not think of it that he came to Islam without any kind of a thinking or something. No, he also later on, when he calmed down, he entered the fold of Islam. Alhamdulillah, we know Hamza's Islam was great. He's referred as Sayyidu Shuhada. He is the prince of the martyrs. Now, after 3 days or so, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu also entered into fold of Islam. And these two people, when they became Muslim, that really strengthened Islam at that time. But there's a huge difference in both of them coming into Islam. Hamza radiallahu anhu, who became Muslim 3 days prior to Umar, he was angry that Rasulullah has been harmed, his nephew, even though he was not a Muslim. And out of that, he became Muslim. And then later on, of course, Islam became good. But on the other hand, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, on contrary, it was a completely opposite thing. He was going to kill Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we have discussed, I'm not going into detail of Umar entering into fold of Islam. But the key thing I want to mention here is, he came into Islam while he was planning to go and assassinate Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when he listened to the Quran, and the Quran really sinked into his heart, and he accepted Islam. And now these two powerful personalities of the Mecca, they entered into the fold of Islam. And now Islam got strength. It's strength to the point that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made 2 rows of the Sahaba. One led by Hamza, other led by Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhuma. And they made the tawaf of the Kaaba. This is the first time now they are openly doing the tawaf of the Kaaba as Muslims. Subhanallah, the kind of a strength. These 2 individuals who came into Islam with 2 different ways, 2 different means that led them to Islam. One was open enemy of Islam and entered into fold of Islam, while the other was because of his tribal links and all that. He went towards Islam, he became Muslim, and became a good Muslim. Okay, now about him, when these 2 became Muslim, Abdullah bin Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he says, we felt a sense of pride when Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, he became Muslim. So for we could not do the tawaf of the Kaaba, house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until Umar became Muslim. When he became Muslim, he fought them until they left us alone. And then he said, Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, then we prayed and did the tawaf of the Kaaba. He also said, Umar becoming Muslim was a victory. His migration was a help. Number three, he says his Khilafah was a mercy. We could not pray or do the tawaf of the Kaaba until Umar became Muslim. When he became Muslim, he fought them until they left us alone and let us pray as well. Similar kind of a saying, we can find other Sahaba Ridwanullah alayhim talking about Umar coming into fold of Islam. And it is not only him, it was both of them actually, Hamza and Umar, because that's the one that really gave the strength to Islam at that point. Now, when they both became Muslim, yes, we see the goodness that came out of it. But obviously, with this goodness, more trial came along with it. Because the kuffar of Mecca, they really sensed it, they really felt it. Now Islam is getting strength. Hence now their opposition became stronger as well. While that was happening, Abu Talib, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was not a Muslim, who unfortunately he passed away without Islam, but he was one of the greatest supporters of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam until he died. He sensed this. So now what does he do? He gathered the Bani Hashim and Bani Abdul Muttalib, the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, we have to give immunity to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Meaning, we have to declare that anybody who is going to harm Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we are going to defend as the tribe. Now, of course, and why Abu Talib was thinking this way? Look, he knew Hamza became Muslim. He knew Umar has become Muslim. He, at the same time, he's seeing that what did Abu Jahl do? He cracked Rasulullah's head open. Before that, he tried to choke Rasulullah to death. There was a time they threw the intestine of the camel, and they even Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh was on his way to kill Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Meccans, they were on their way, on the verge of killing Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is why Abu Talib, he sensed it. He understood that we have to do something. Hence, he got up and he gathered the tribe, and they got together and they decided that they will prevent Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, today's talk after that, we talked about the Hamza's Islam and all that. There's a little bit we have to talk about one incident which is very important, and this was a 3-year-old long incident. And it's important this event to be understood so we will understand why the Sahaba acted later on the way they acted and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam acted the way he acted. And that was the general boycott that was done by the kuffar of the Makkah against the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all the Muslimin. Why? Because when this immunity came from the tribe of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, now the kuffar understood we cannot just go and kill Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam like that. We cannot just kill him because they know that the tribe of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a very well-respected, powerful tribe of the Mecca. You cannot just go against them. You think you kill Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you'll get away. Hence, they had to think of something else. So now they came up with something which is, we are going to do a general boycott of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family members, Muslim, non-Muslim, because they are the one who are supporting Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they did the boycott of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family. Now this whole idea was of where they're going to boycott. This is Meccans. They gathered. There's a place called Wadi al-Muhassab. This is the place they gathered because of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that mentions it, where they gathered later on, and they decided that they are going to do a general boycott of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what does it mean now? What meant by that was that boycott included that there will be no more business dealing with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, Abdul Muttalib, Bani Abdul Muttalib, Bani Hashim, and all the Muslims as well. There will be no more business dealing with them. And all these people were thrown into a push down to Sha'b Abi Talib. Sha'b in Arabic means is the valley of Abi Talib, Abu Talib's region over there. So they moved them all down there, no businesses dealing with them, there will be no more intermarriage with those people, all of them. No social relations, there will be no visits to them, and there will be no even verbal contact with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his supporters. And that will be discontinued until either the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave up Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning they gave it to them and they will kill Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that was their thing. Now, while all this was happening, so because of that, there was no more food supply to these people. People were in confinement, faced great hardship. Now these idolaters used to buy whatever food commodities entered Mecca, lest they should leak to the people of Asham. So all they should buy, they used to buy everything, whatever is coming into the Mecca. And somehow, some people here and there, they would leak some of the food into the valley. That was the only access they had. Otherwise, they got to the point that they were eating like barks of the trees even. That was the situation they were in. There was that much lack of food. And you could hear the children are crying in from the valley. And now there's a report that says Hakim bin Hizam, who was not a Muslim, who was related to Khadija radiallahu anha. One time, he was trying to smuggle some food down to, of course, Khadija radiallahu anha was among them, and the rest of the Muslimin. And Abu Jahl, he saw Rasulullah that Hakim, that he is bringing the food, and he tried to stop him. And he tried to talk back to him, but it was not working. And Abu Jahl was trying to prevent any kind of food going in. Then there's another guy, Abu al-Bakhtari. Abu al-Bakhtari, he saw what was happening and he intervened. And he somehow let the food go through because he referred to this as the food of Khadija radiallahu anha, it should be gone. And they are both non-Muslims at that time, by the way. So these are non-Muslims, but they were, if you want to call them neutral, even though Abu al-Bakhtari is one of those people, was one of the people who was killed in Badr, killed in Badr as one of among the kuffar. But he was also at the same time, they sensed it because at the end, there were some of the marriages occurred between inter-tribes as well. Their women were given to them or their women were married to them. So they had some links still. Now, Abu Talib on the other hand, he was very concerned about the life of Rasulullah even in that situation. He used to make sure that Rasulullah would sleep at the spot of Abu Talib. He goes to sleep there. He would not sleep at the spot of Muhammad assigned to him. And now during the nighttime, sometime he would come and he would move Rasulullah from that spot also, and he would go sleep there. And then Rasulullah moved to some other spot. So he was continuously protecting Rasulullah with whichever means he can think of. Now, all this situation was going on. Some of the non-Muslims, among them, some of the kuffar who were among the Meccans, that included Hisham bin Amr, Zuhair bin Abi Umayyah, Mut'im bin Adi, and Abu al-Bakhtari, as we talked about, and Zama' bin al-Aswad. These five people, one by one, they met each other, and they were not happy with this. And this thing happened in the 7th year of the prophethood, and of the month of Muharram, and went on until the 10th year. So we're talking about 3 years period of time. The Sahaba, Rasulullah and the family of Rasulullah, all of them were thrown into this valley, and with all the boycott and sanctions were happening to Rasulullah and the Sahaba. Even the family of Rasulullah there were people who were non-Muslims as well, by the way. They suffered along with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, now we should think about that, and inshallah at the end I will conclude some of the things important to pay attention to. Many a time we hear among the Muslims that we think of it, if the Muslim nations do not go along with whatever the IMF or World Bank or this country or that country or UN or they are doing against the Muslim, they will put the sanctions against the Muslim. We have to avoid these sanctions. Hence, we have to give up our deen even in many cases, we find out. What I mean by that, they start compromising on the principles of Islam. We don't see that in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He went through 3 straight years. And Sahaba, even the kuffar, they went through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But we don't see them making compromise or giving up any inch from the Islam. They did not give up, they did not give in anything. These 5 guys, they decided we have to help. One of them said, well, how can I, he went to talk to the other guy, and he said, man, we are just 2 people. How can we do something? He said, okay, let me talk to the 3rd one. Let me talk to the 4th one. Let me talk to the 5th one. And they all agree, okay, fine. So what should we do now? We are 5 now. So they said, okay, we're going to go to Haram. When everybody's sitting there, we're going to spread out in the Haram. When people gather, at that time, we will start talking. And over there, they decided to meet there in assembly place and start their self-charge mission. That was their mission. So Zuhair, after doing the tawaf of the Kaaba 7 times, and they're not Muslims. Let's keep that in mind. These guys were not Muslim. Only reason they're doing it because of whatever tribal links they had with the people who were there. And they could not see that the suffering of their own, somehow they were related to each other anyways. So Zuhair, after the tawaf of the Kaaba, he approached and he said, how can we be living such a nice life? We eat food and everything, while our brothers and our sisters, they're suffering, they're starving to death like that. So Abu Jahl came and he stopped him. He said, because he was asking me, we have to turn the boycott agreement that we had, the parchment, they wrote it down and they hung it in the Kaaba. So he said, we have to tear this down. Abu Jahl came in, he said, no, you can't do that. Now, after Zuhair, Zama got up, and he said, he accused Abu Jahl of lying. He said he did not get the permission from all of us about this boycott. So he made it up all this. Now, when Zama said this, now he said to stop him. On the other hand, Abu al-Bakhtari, he intervened also. And then Muta Abd Ali and Hisham ibn Amr. And they were on different areas within the Haram. So when they start getting up from 5 different places, it felt as if that everybody is agreeing with them now. So they created the noise in a manner that it felt like, okay, now, man, everybody is against Abu Jahl. So Abu Jahl realized that, okay, this is a trick. He said, they are playing some game here. This is why they're doing that. Now, when Abu Jahl started saying that, Abu Talib happened to be there at that time. He was sitting by the Kaaba. And the reason he came, because the wahi was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that there are ants who have eaten the whole parchment on which this boycott, all those sanctions were written, except because they started, even those kuffar, they used to start the things with the Bismillah. So Bismillah was the only part that was not eaten by the ants. So Abu Talib came and he said, my nephew says the wahi has revealed to him and the parchment had been eaten by the ants. And if that has happened, we have to end this boycott. And if it has not happened, look, Abu Talib was not a Muslim, but he believed in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he's not a liar. He says the truth. Hence, what does he do? Abu Talib says, okay, I give you my word. If it's not true what Abu Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, then I will give you Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do whatever you want with him after that. Now they went back and they saw that the parchment was read. Of course, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given this information by Allah Azza wa Jal. But even such a clear kind of evidence for the people to see, look, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is getting the news from Allah Azza wa Jal, getting information from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wahi is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's time for you to believe in what Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has brought. But they still did not. As Allah Azza wa Jal, but if they see the sign, they turn away and say, oh, this is just continuous magic. Also, so Allah is bringing like this, it is magic. From magic, he finds out all those things. And then, of course, that was true. And then at the end, they had to get rid of this, the boycott document that they had. Now, after this happened, they got rid of this. And now Abu Talib, he was very sick. Okay, and we'll talk more about this year of grief that happened after this incident. Abu Talib was very sick, and Kuffar of the Makkah, they realized that we have to do something to prevent this deen to expand. Now, boycott did not work either. So at this point, they said, okay, we're going to try another diplomacy chance to go and talk to Rasulullah, talk to Abu Talib. He's still alive. He may be able to put, according to their understanding, some sense in the head of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They gathered and they created a delegation of 25 leaders of the Mecca. They went to Abu Talib and asked him to stop Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from what he is doing. Upon which Abu Talib went to Rasulullah thinking he is also getting weak. He tried to talk to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he said, well, my nephew, these are the big guys of these Meccans. They have proposed this meeting to submit a policy of mutual concession and peaceful coexistence. Peaceful coexistence, meaning Rasulullah ﷺ would not say anything about their deen, because the idols they're worshipping, Rasulullah ﷺ would not say that this is not allowed. This is something taking you towards the hellfire. And now upon that, Rasulullah ﷺ's response was very interesting. And this was the last time they tried this diplomacy kind of a stuff. Because after that, Abu Talib passed away. Now, Rasulullah ﷺ said, what if I give you something better than that? Just follow one word, he said, kalima. And upon that, the Arab, you will be ruling over the Arabs, and the Ajam, you will be ruling and they'll be giving you jizya. Meaning if they don't accept Islam, they will give you jizya. Upon that, Abu Jahl said, you talk about one, we'll do 10 times what he's asking. We'll do 10 times. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says, Ya ammi qulu la ilaha illallah. Oh my uncle, say la ilaha, tell them to say la ilaha illallah. There is nobody worthy of worship except Allah Azza wa Jal. And upon that, of course, their response was that this is nothing but an invention. And they said, this is something that we cannot reveal. And they declined Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then Surah Sa'd was revealed. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is the last time they had any kind of diplomacy act was done between Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and them. And after that, it was more of a harsher and harsher treatment towards Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the next year was Aam al-Huzn, the year when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he lost two of the greatest supporters of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I'm going to talk about just Abu Talib today, and next week we'll talk about Khadija, so we can talk about life of Khadija radiallahu anha as well, and what was the role of Khadija radiallahu anha in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, briefly at least. And when Abu Talib was on his deathbed, and he said, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reached out to him. He said, Ammi qul la ilaha illallah, oh my uncle, say la ilaha illallah, and I will save you. It will save you on the day of judgment. And the kuffar of the Makkah, they came to Abu Talib as well. And they insisted on Abu Talib to continue. How can he leave the deen of his ancestors, his fathers and forefathers? How can you leave the deen of that? At the end, unfortunately, even though Abu Talib was very close to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he was very close to, as some of the riwayat reports talk about, very close to enter into Islam. At that time, he was on the deathbed. But this tribal link, this nationalistic kind of idea, they pulled Abu Talib towards kept him towards the kufr, and he did not accept Islam, and he died in the state of the kufr. And about that, the death of Abu Talib, and because Abu Talib and Khadija radiallahu anha, they passed away within the 3 months period of time, the separation of time. And this year is called Aam al-Huzn, the year of grief for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because it was not only Abu Talib passed away was a pain. It was a bigger pain for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he did not accept Islam. Imagine our own fathers, parents, children, uncles, aunts. If we know of them that they have left Islam or they have not accepted Islam, and if they die in that state, we know from the clear text of the Quran and the Sunnah what would be their ending. It is a painful thing. Think of a person who was the greatest supporter of Rasulullah, one of the greatest supporters of Rasulullah. He died in the state of kufr. And about that, Abbas radiallahu anhu came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, هل نفعت أبا طالب بشيء? He said to Ya Rasulullah, did you benefit Abu Talib with anything as he used to protect you? He said, فَإِنَّهُ كَانَ يَحُوتُكَ وَيَغْضُبُ لَكَ, that he used to protect you, he used to get angry because of you. Rasulullah said, نعم هو في دحداح من نار لولا أن لكان في الدرك الأسفل من النار. And he says, yes, it will benefit him, but how? He will be thrown into the shallowest part of the hellfire. But that fire will be sufficient enough that it will boil his brains, as the other hadith says that دحدح من النار يبلغ كعبيه يغلي منه دماغه. That it says that the fire will be up to his ankles, but that will be sufficient for boiling his brain. See that even though he did all that, but because of he died in the kufr, it will not be enough for him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَهْدِي مَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it is not you, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever you wish you love will enter into the fold of Islam. Only for enter into the fold of Allah wishes, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who are the one who are the guided ones. So it's not what we wish. Even Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the messenger of Allah, he wished that his uncle would become Muslim, but he did not. Now, at the end, I just would like to talk about there's some points to take the lessons from, because the idea is not just to talk about these events. What these events show us is very clear. Very clearly it shows Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through even 3 years of sanctions and boycott, all the sufferings that was happening, all the compromising statements given to him, asked him to make compromise with Rasulullah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never made any compromise on the deen of Allah. Remember that. We love Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. People are, for the love of Rasulullah, are remembering more and more love in the month of Rabiul Awwal. Let's talk about what is the love of Rasulullah. The love is in following Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what the love of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is. It cannot be love that we say we love him, but we don't follow him. As Imam Baydawi even said, the love of Allah and His Messenger means that we obey and follow them. That's what the love means. So obedience is the love. And then look at Rasulullah and the Sahaba, no matter how difficult the situation was, they continued to do even the da'wah of Islam. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam even doing the da'wah during the time of the boycott and sanctions as well. So today, when we see the situations in the Muslim lands, or whatever is happening to the Muslims, whether it is how the Muslims been treated in India today, whether in China by the Uyghurs, whether whatever is happening in the Sham by the Bashar al-Assad and his regime, or when you talk about what's happening in Yemen and Palestine or Kashmir, and keep going on, the list goes on. We have to also understand that the cause of the problems that happened in time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying it was the kufr that was causing all these problems. And the solution was same at that time and it's still the same, which is bringing back Islam. Islam is the one that not only solves the problems of the Muslims, but the mankind at large, and shows the people how to really live under the mercy of the Creator of the heavens and the earth. It shows us how the real mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal when the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is implemented on the face of the earth. We'll stop here, inshallah. If there's any question or comment about the subject, I'll try to answer them. Jazakumullah khairan. Let's see.